Hello and welcome to the Sponsor Driven podcast. My name is Nico, and each week I sit down with people from across the world of motorsport, from competitors chasing their dreams on track to the brands, sponsors, and people behind the scenes who make it all possible. Sponsor Driven is all about giving drivers some more exposure and connecting them with fans and sponsors. This podcast is an extension of that mission, helping competitors share their journey, giving brands a platform to showcase their support, and inspiring the next generation of talent. You can listen to the podcast on all major platforms and also watch every episode on YouTube. Today's guest is Morgan Kidd, a young British racing driver competing in the Ford Fiesta ST240 Championship. She burst into the car scene by winning the Fiesta ST240 Club Class title in her rookie year and now competes in the Pro Class. Alongside racing, she balances university studies and is actively building support on the sponsor-driven platform. Let's welcome Morgan.
Hello.
So, Morgan, you've been around motorsport from a very young age. I know you first rode a quad bike when you were, 4 years old? And by 8 years old, you were already racing karts. Can you walk us through those early years of what drew you in and how that journey eventually led you to karting into cars?
So my parents have always been in the motorsport scene. My dad's a mechanic on classic cars, like Austin A40s and stuff like that. So motorsport was always on the telly. And when I was younger, I used to absolutely hate F1. I just thought it was so boring. And then we would always go and watch banger racing and stock cars and stuff, so more short oval. And I just fell in love and I saw the mini stocks and I was like, I want to have a go in one of those. And Dad was like, absolutely not. So he bought me a quad bike when I was 4, and then we quite quickly moved up to a motocross bike, and I just kept falling off. 2 wheels was just not for me. And he then stuck me in a go-kart. One of the people he worked with raced at our local track. They took me down. I watched him, and then we went the next weekend in one of the rental karts, and we then joined a rental kart club called Young Stars at Red Lodge, and just never looked back, really. We were out every single weekend after that.
And so when you look back at those karting years, what skills or lessons stuck with you that helped you transition to cars later on?
Probably the racecraft, because cars and karts are so different. In a go-kart, everything happens so quickly. You're so low to the floor. You can actively see the apexes and you can see people. Like, you are just kind of like sat on top of this thing. Whereas in a car, you go to your inside a vehicle, you're sat on one side of the car. Like, you have to learn to have the spatial awareness of the car, like learn the dimensions. Whereas in a go-kart, you can see everything. But definitely the racecraft, like going for overtakes, setting yourself up, that sort of stuff is really transferable into cars. Where I went from a rear-wheel drive go-kart to a front-wheel drive car, and I had to learn the hard way that if it's all going wrong, you don't brake. You have to put your foot down in a front-wheel drive car, and that's something that was kind of alien to me coming from go-karts. But once it went wrong and then I stuck my foot down and it corrected it, I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. So I'm not going to keep braking when I'm half spinning. Like, I need to put my foot down and that'll sort it out. So I definitely think that's kind of made me into the driver I am today.
And was there a moment when you realised that karting wasn't just a hobby and actually you could potentially make a career out of it?
It was when we went to, at the time it was Super One. Super One was the British champs. And I went and did that when I first started junior TKM. And I just loved it. I loved the atmosphere of like the bigger championship, being with a team. Like, I just fell in love with the whole process of it. And I just loved racing so much. Then I like, it was part of my life for like since I was 8 years old, going out every single weekend, like having Thursday, Fridays off school to go racing all over the country. Like, it just consumed my life, but I wouldn't change that for the world. I just absolutely just loved racing.
I guess it's important to note that you are a female in motorsport. It's one of the biggest challenges that people face these days is trying to get into the sport. You were one of the only females racing in karts at the time.
I when I went up to junior TKM was when Abby Pulling was racing, and she was like winning the championship. So she was always a bit of an idol for me when I came up. Like, she's a bit older than me, and I just kind of wanted to be able to drive and race like her. So that was quite helpful. But being one of two in the paddock was always a bit of a challenge. And then she moved on to senior racing, and I was the only girl, and kind of having to fly the female flag at the front of the British Championship races. It was hard, but once the helmet goes on, like, everyone's just a number. You're just a go-kart. Like, I'm not thinking, oh, that's such and such or whatever. It's just another person to overtake, really.
I love that. And just speaking of role models, obviously you mentioned Abby Pulling. Are there any other female drivers that you looked up to when you were younger?
Definitely Jamie Chadwick. When they did the W Series, I followed her quite closely, and I think she does some incredible things with her racing and what she's doing with the Chadwick Series, like being flying the flag for female motorsport, and also being a fast female is just incredible, I think.
Of course. And speaking of the Jamie Chadwick Series, obviously you haven't had a chance to compete in that. No. Would you have loved to have competed in that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I just love racing. I'd race anything.
And how important do you think something like the Jamie Chadwick Series is for females in motorsport? And do you think attitudes have changed as a result?
I definitely think attitudes have changed towards females in motorsport. When I was younger, it was a bit of a taboo, being one of very few. But it's nice to see that girls have been given the championship to race. If they're not confident enough to race with the boys, or for whatever reason, or they want to get into racing, it's just a great avenue for people to get their foot in the door and then go on to potentially race like owner karts and go on to the big championships.
Going back to your experience in karts and then progressing into cars, you stepped pretty much straight into the Fiesta ST. What made you choose the Fiesta ST as your path?
So we originally built a Fiesta 150 at the beginning of, I think it might have been mid-COVID lockdown actually, when we decided we wanted to go to cars, and the 150 championship was thriving, and then all of a sudden the Mark 7s started to come along, the 240s, and we kind of decided we'd built the wrong car. And with the 240s kind of like coming up in the world of BRSCC, we decided to book a test day in one of them with the team that I'm currently racing with, JRW Motorsport, and just fell in love with the car. It's a one-make series. The car can be quite forgiving, so it's a good avenue to step into coming from karts. It was hard because it's a front-wheel drive car and I've come from rear-wheel drive karts, so they do handle pretty differently, especially when everything's going a bit wrong. You need to learn to put your foot down instead of braking. And but yeah, and the full slick tyre, so insane amounts of grip, and they just handle incredibly. And they've got ABS, which can be both a blessing and a curse sometimes. After I had ABS failure at Thruxton, that wasn't very good, but I just love the car. I've really got to grips with it, so I just love racing them.
And so why did you choose the Fiesta over any other series?
They're quite, for what they are, they're quite cost kind of friendly. Right. I think we see full slick tyre, they're easily maintained, and they're quite a forgiving car. So I think we do £21,000. No, yeah, £21,000 for the year, and for motorsport, that is pretty good going for a tin top series, especially when all the cars are the same. It's a very level playing field, and the racing is just incredible. Like, saloon stuff, tin top stuff is unmatched, in my opinion.
So that car essentially became the stage for one of your biggest achievements. So, I mean, your path has always had a bit of a couple of twists. So from karting to setbacks like the crash at Thruxton, touch on that in it shortly, but then to bouncing back and then winning the Fiesta ST240 club class. Could you talk us through that journey step by step and what each stage taught you?
So through the karting stuff, that taught me a lot of resilience. Like, unfortunately, motorsport can have a lot more lows than it does highs. Like, you do have a fair amount of tough weekends, and especially like growing up, and I raced through very developmental years of my life, like throughout since I was 8 up until I finished high school pretty much. And I do definitely think it molded me into the person that I am today, like having to face like mechanical issues or incidents that weren't your fault, and even coming to terms with incidents that probably were your fault. Like, it's such a great like life, like building hobby. I think like it taught me a lot of life lessons, and especially being the only girl in the later few years of my karting career, it was quite tough. I did suffer a little bit of like cyberbullying almost. Like, I didn't really enjoy my last year of karting, which was unfortunate, but I didn't lose my love for motorsport. And then we decided to move up into cars. I didn't really have any interest in going to senior karts because I kind of thought I want to race cars. That's what I've wanted to do since I was younger. Yeah. And then took a break over COVID, and then went into the Fiesta, and it I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I did when I was karting and doing British champs and stuff like that. It can get quite tough. And stepping into a championship, never driven a car, had no pressure like on me. It was just kind of trying to regain that fun in motorsport. And then I went on and won a championship, like just enjoyed every single race. And then since then we have had a few setbacks, like engine issues, a couple big incidents, and my first few years in the pro class haven't potentially gone as well as they probably should have gone, but bounce back and come back stronger.
So in terms of that crash at Thruxton, what happens? So
Thruxton, being one of the fastest circuits in the UK, it is one of my favourites, despite having a big shunt. We'd done pretty well all weekend. We'd come back from, I think we'd had engine issues in the meeting prior. So we got fresh engine and we were back on the pace, top 6 pace, which is where I should have been like for the majority of the season. But cars, there's a lot can go wrong, and sometimes it just doesn't go your way. And Lady Luck wasn't on our side that year. And then we got to Thruxton, never been there before, and we were quick. And that was a brilliant feeling. And then race 2, I think it was, I started near the front. I think I might have been 3rd, or I was definitely in the top 6. And we go to pull out to race, and you normally turn your traction control off before you go out. I was trying to turn it off, and I was like, oh, this isn't turning off. But it was too late. All the mechanics had left, and I was like, I'm just going to have to go drive around it, race through it. And it was also raining. And then I pulled out of the pits, and maybe ABS light came on, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be a good race. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try and drive around it. It'll be fine. I was starting near the front, and we left, like, race got going. It was pouring it down, torrential rain, and I got up into 3rd or something. I was near the front, and you just come round. So you come round like there's a large like sweeping straight round the back that goes into the last chicane. I think we were doing 127 mile an hour in the rain, and I just broke where I normally broke, and the front wheels just locked up. Just couldn't stop, and aquaplaned across into the gravel. And I tried to kind of flick it, but I just had no grip and just went head on into the barrier at about 120 mile an hour, which wasn't great. And then that was kind of a shock. I just kind of sat there. And when you're racing on a budget, you're like, oh, what's the damage like to the car? Like, how much is this going to cost? And that was my main kind of thought in that moment. And I got taken to the medical centre, and the doctor was like, no, you can't. Well, I'm not letting you back out. Like, the belts have been stretched too much. Like, that's a big hit. And I was like, no, I'm fine. We can go back out. And he's like, no. And then my dad came, and he was like, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, can we get the car fixed? And Dad was like, no, we're going home. And I was like, I was just buzzing off this adrenaline. Like, I just wanted to go back out because I knew that the car was absolutely on point that weekend. I was on point, and I could have been on for a podium, and it just, out of a mechanical fault, just all wilted away. But despite having a big shunt that weekend, my confidence was back in the car, which is weird because I just had a big crash. Normally that'd knock you back, but I knew that the shunt wasn't my fault, and I knew that I previously to that race had been on the limit and had been well hooked up in this car, and I was like, I can drive this car, like I can be quick. And that was kind of, in a weird way, such a weird confidence boost for me in the car.
Did you sustain any injuries from that?
No, I was fine. No.
So you could have literally gone straight into a car and...
Yeah, I wanted to. I was a bit sore the next day, like around my neck and stuff, but I just wanted to get back out. I asked the team, I was like, have we got a spare car? They're like, no, you've not got the all clear from the doctor. And I was like, I just want to go out.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the crash. Has there been any other incidents like that?
Nothing like that. I had a bit of an incident at the beginning of this year at round 2 at Alton Park. We're coming out of the golf hairpin, and a teammate had moved across, so I kind of took to the grass, and I was like, I'm just going to keep my foot in and rejoin. But unfortunately, there's some quite big holes on that outfield, and I hit 3 of them, and it just ripped the radiator from the bottom, from the front of the car. And the pictures are awful. It's horrible, but that was not nice.
So apart from some of the incidents you've had, obviously you've won titles. So winning the title so early must have been an incredible moment for you. What did it mean for your confidence and for proving to others that you actually belong on the grid?
Winning the championship just kind of solidified the fact that I thought I got this confidence. I was like, I can do this. Like, I can win races in my class. And throughout that year, my rookie year, I'd been getting quicker and quicker. And at the last round, Silverstone, I think it was international, I was up there fighting in the top 6, top 5, like battling with the faster boys. And I was just like, yeah, I could win this championship like one day. And I went into the next season, my first pro season, with this newfound confidence. I was like, I just want to get back out in the car, and I just want to win races and podium. But unfortunately, we had engine issues and just mechanical after mechanical that season. So that wasn't the season that I'd wanted. I didn't want that to be my maiden season in the pro class. And then that kind of knocked me back a bit, but I kind of took it on the chin, and I was like, right, we'll try again this year. And then faced more mechanical issues, but I think we've sorted that now. I've matched my pro class best finish twice this year, so I'm hoping to finally get on the podium at Donington this weekend. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So you mentioned about going from club class into the pro. How different are those classes?
To be honest, they're not really that different, like, because the cars are all the same. You're driving with the same drivers. Like, the 2 classes mix quite a lot. Like, when I was in the club class, I'd be up in the top 10, in the top 6, like battling with those boys. But I think it's just the club class provides kind of like a bit of a confidence boost for people that haven't raced before, like myself, like coming in and not getting walked all over. And I do get to come home with a few trophies, which is always quite nice. But yeah, the racing is quite different in the fact that when you're at the front of the grid, there's a lot more respect there. People aren't trying to door you off or shut the door on you. Like, people want to race. And that's what I liked. So as I got faster, the racing got better and it was less scrappy. We were having less damage. Like, that's why it's so important in Fiestas to have a good qualifying, because you qualify well, you're then up there. You're not having to scrap through and try and claw your way up the grid to get a good position to start the next race. The racing is just so much cleaner and better because you're with those more mature racers that have been racing in the class for a bit longer, and they know what the car can do. Like, they know what moves they can do. They've been to the circuits, and you can learn a lot from them. Like, I've learned a lot this year from Alistair Kellett, who won the championship last year, and I've learned a lot from just following him and being racing around him. And that's definitely kind of shaped my racecraft from what it was in karting to the club class to now to where I am in the pro class. It's definitely kind of moulded how I race now.
The difference between karting and racing in cars, just thinking about like what it's like on the paddock for you as a female driver, have you seen there's a cultural shift going from karting into racing?
I think there definitely is a shift. I think with karting, when I was karting, I know that karting's changed a lot now, but it was very dad and lad, like family orientated, like everyone believes their son's the next Lewis Hamilton type thing. And it was really serious. Like, when you think about it, we're all like 13-year-old kids racing around. Like, this is supposed to be fun. And there's just so much pressure put onto the drivers from the mechanics, from the parents. And it got to a point for me where it just wasn't that fun anymore. I loved the racing, but just didn't like the atmosphere. Yeah. And then going up into cars, it's like these race teams, that's their job, that's their livelihood. Like, and they want the best for you. They want the best out of the cars, and they want the best for their business. And it's just so much more relaxed almost. There's not that pressure there. A lot of people that are racing with me are doing it for fun. It's their hobby. That's what they like to do on their weekends. Like, they've got their businesses, their jobs, their families, and then they come and they race. Whereas karting was very much like you're racing with the purpose of you want to be a professional race car driver. Whereas when you go up into cars, it's a bit more relaxed. Like, I still want to be a professional race car driver, and that's what my goal has been through karts and through cars. But a lot of people in cars, they just start with cars. They haven't done the whole British champs karting and then come up. They've seen the Fiestas and they've gone, I just want to try that for a weekend, and then they get sucked into the whole racing scene, and it's just a lot more healthy, I think. Like, I'm really friendly with my teammates I race with, and like a lot of people around the paddock. It's like we have barbecues in the evenings. Like, everyone has a few beers together. It's just fun.
No, I've definitely seen that a lot when going into some of the paddocks. There's a lot of almost like a family vibe.
Yeah,
it's like you belong there.
Yeah,
and that belonging has kind of shifted from karting and struggling to compete with some of the boys, as you mentioned, into the cars where it's just much more welcoming. Do you think that the Fiesta ST is a good championship series for female drivers to start in?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Yourself?
Definitely. Like, I get a lot of support from even like the officials and stuff, the scrutineers, our championship coordinator, Esther. She's very supportive, and it's like a family. Like, you have a bad race and she'll come and give you a hug. She's like, oh, it's fine, just go out for the next one. And it is just such a welcoming paddock. And once you kind of like find your feet and you introduce yourself to people and you kind of show people who you are and that you're a nice person and you can race, like people gain a bit more respect for you, and it's just a great stepping stone into the car racing world, I think.
Probably worth talking about like what goes into getting ready for a race weekend. How do you prepare for a race weekend, both physically and mentally?
So I do a lot of sim work. I've got a sim at home, and I just spend a couple hours every evening in the weeks leading up to the race doing like just testing the circuit, really doing a few online races maybe. Speaking to my mates, I've got mates in different championships that have raced around there before and stuff like that, talking to them and just trying to prepare myself as much as I can so that I'm not going out blind. Like I know where the circuit leads at the end of the pit lane, like I know which way to turn and which way the circuit goes, and that always helps. I'm a bit of a fitness freak anyway, but I do a lot of stuff in the gym. I kind of like to tailor my training around being a racing driver as well as just being a gym enjoyer. So I do a lot of running. I've just started cycling as well. Do a lot of like lifting work and stuff. But that's something that I had a personal trainer when I was karting. So that's kind of something that I've adopted from what I had when I was younger to now, and going to university, doing sport and exercise science has kind of helped me mould my own fitness and training regime. And it also mentally, it relaxes you. I find a lot of therapy and like movement and fitness, like just going for a run. Like say I do a lot of running around the circuits when I go racing. So if I've had a bad Friday test day, just run a lap of the circuit or walk a lap of the circuit, and it relaxes you. But yeah, I just kind of try and chill out, and I just get excited. I'm so excited to race all the time. Like I'm absolutely buzzing to go to Donington and go race.
You mentioned sim racing. How do you feel the differences between racing in a simulator to racing in the real world? Do you think it translates, or is there a huge difference?
I think it definitely translates. My simulator, personally, like it's not one of the ones that moves and stuff. Like I've got a responsive steering wheel, but you can get these really high tech ones that are literally like driving a car. And something I struggled with is I got the simulator when I was finishing karts, moving into cars. And it's all well and good knowing where the circuit goes, but it's the handling of the car that I would struggle with initially. And the movement underneath you, like the Fiesta it pitches and rolls and it like dives on its nose, like it moves about a lot. And just learning how the car moves, like the simulator is brilliant for learning the circuit, learning the lines, and you're kind of familiarising yourself with the circuit before you go. But I do think there is a bit of a gap in the whole racecraft, car handling side of things and the sim world. But so many drivers have been plucked out of sim racing championships or have like won them and gone into cars and are still quick. So they're definitely transferable skills, but I just mainly just use it for the knowing where the circuit is and then kind of transferring that onto the race weekend.
Okay. And you mentioned about finding, running and your gym regime to be quite relaxing. Do you listen to music when you're getting ready to race and when you're just trying to get into the zone?
Yeah, I do. I recently have started to listen to more music before I go out. I just feel like it kind of gets you in that zone, like you can't lock in before you go down to the assembly area. And I like to listen to music at the awning, and then I kind of like turn that all off and drive down to assembly and relax. And I listen to quite like upbeat stuff, like a bit of like Drake or some sort of something.
I was going to say,
that.
What's on your playlist at the moment?
I'm listening to a lot of house stuff recently,
Okay.
like stuff with a bit of a bass line you can get your head bopping to, and it just kind of like sometimes when I'm driving around, those songs like play in my head, and it just kind of like, it all just pieces together, which is quite nice.
Is there any song that you've listened to and then you've gone into a race and gone, I shouldn't have listened to that. That was the wrong music to listen to?
Yeah, I've done that before. I've listened to like Sabrina Carpenter before I've gone out, and I'm like, that's not the song to be listening to before you go out for a race. Like, I need some upbeat stuff. And my friend Albert, he puts on like drum and bass before he goes out, but he plays it on the loudspeakers in the awning. Yep. So like everyone gets riled up, and he's just there dancing and singing. And I kind of like act like I'm not listening, but I'm listening to it, and it's kind of hyping me up a bit.
You secretly love it.
Yeah.
Aside from your racing, you're actually a university student right now. How do you balance your studies and everyday life with motorsport?
When I was at university, it was tricky because uni is such a full-on experience. It's a lot of independent learning, and it did get quite tough when it come to crunch time with my dissertation, and that was kind of hard. I spent a lot of time in the back of the lorry revising, and like a team owner would come in and be like, turn that laptop off, you're supposed to be racing. And I'm like, I need to revise. Like, I've got an exam on Monday, but I'm still racing type thing. And the amount of times that I went to a race after I just finished an exam, and they'd be like, oh, what did you do today? And I'm like, oh, I've just sat a 2.5-hour exam. And they're like, oh, that's horrible. But again, like, I loved university. I graduated in the summer. It was the best 3 years of my life. I definitely think if you're thinking about going to uni, like, do it. I've met so many good people, like so many friends. And if you'd met me, like, let's say at the beginning of my karting career, I was very quiet, very shy. Like, I would definitely not be sat here doing this today. But throughout like my karting journey, it brought me out of my shell. And then that's when I decided, like, I want to go to uni. I want to go and live in a different city. I want to go study something that I'm passionate about. And I did, and it was incredible. And as well, meeting my friends at uni, they were also interested in my racing. No one really at school. I didn't really talk about racing at school. That was kind of like two separate people. Like, I was really quiet, shy kid at school, and then I'd go race on the weekends. But kind of like bringing my friends and racing together is quite nice, because they all they follow along on the live streams and stuff like that, which is quite nice. But it was tricky. And I think just balancing racing with general life, it can be quite hard, especially like now that I'm looking for a job. Like, I want a full-time job, but it's like, oh, when am I going to go racing? Like, how many days holiday do I get a year? Because I need to put the Fridays off to go racing. Like, where's racing going to fit around this? And I've been going for job interviews, and my dad's like, did you mention anything about your racing? And I'm like, no. And he's like, you need to tell people, because it's a big thing. Like, you can't do some weekends. And I was like, oh yeah, but because I've been doing it for so long, it's just the norm. And I just don't really think like that. And I'm just like, oh, and then they get back to me and they're like, oh, well, we found out you're a race car driver and you can't work like 2 weekends a month, so we can't have you. And I'm like, oh, okay. But, oh well.
Well, I was going to say, like, what sacrifices do you have to make for you to be able to keep competing? It sounds like obviously finding a full-time job makes it a bit harder. In terms of other sacrifices, have there been any other sacrifices that you've had to make? Obviously, with the fact that you're trying to balance, when you're at university, with your racing, like going forward, like how do you find that balance?
I think growing up, I kind of sacrificed a lot more, but like unknowingly in a way, because it's like, oh, you couldn't go to this party, you couldn't do this because you're racing, but I never really saw a problem in that. I was just like, well, I'd rather go racing anyway. Like, you kind of sacrifice your social life at home and at school and at university, but some of my best friends I've made through racing. So it kind of like, well, I can't go to that party, but I'm hanging out with my racing mates. So it kind of makes up for it in a way. And it is quite hard now. Like, once I'd finished uni, come home, and I work in a pub, but that wasn't quite sustainable enough for me to save up and then eventually move out again. So I looked for other jobs, but a lot of stuff's like weekend work, and I wasn't willing to give up my racing just to go get a job at a coffee shop or something like that. So it is quite tricky, and you do have to sacrifice a lot. But I think when you've been doing it for so long, it just becomes the norm, really. And I just don't think of them as sacrifices. It's just kind of my life, really.
And do you think you're maybe at a slight disadvantage from people who are able to give full time to their racing careers versus like yourself that has to find a full-time job and do this as a spare time thing?
Yeah, I definitely, I would love to be able to just race full time, travel the world. Like that's the dream, is to go onto the world stage in like endurance type stuff, and just be able for racing to consume my life again. But since taking a step back from karting, cars, you're not out every weekend. Like with karting, I think non-stop from when I was like 8 up until 16, 15, I was out every single weekend. Like a weekend off, you'd get a weekend off at Christmas normally, and that was about it. And then you come into cars and it's a bit more spread out. You're out like 7, 8 weekends in a year. And it was a bit hard at the start because I was like, oh, well, I'd want to be out racing this weekend, but it's like, well, there is nowhere for you to race, or we can't afford to do a track day or a test day. So it is a lot different, and I can kind of like have a normal life around my motorsport life, but I just want motorsport to be in my life all the time, like forever. Like I just love it so much, and ideally I'd like to find a full-time job in motorsport. But unfortunately, I'm not very mechanically minded, nor am I an engineer, so I couldn't be a race mechanic or anything like that. So kind of have to explore different avenues in the motorsport world, which is what I'm currently trying to do to keep my foot in the door, because you never know who you're going to meet. Maybe one day I'll get a full-time job and meet someone and make a good impression, and then they'll go, we should race together, I'll pay for your racing, or something like that. That's kind of ideally what I'd like to happen, but you just never know, really, do you?
Touching on like the sponsorship side of things and getting support, we all know that motorsport is a very expensive sport. And one of the hardest things in motorsport is getting the funding for it. And like you mentioned, being able to afford race weekends and free practice. What has your journey been like in trying to secure sponsorship and keep your racing career on track?
Sponsorship is, I think since COVID, it's not been the same. So when I was karting, we had a few sponsors, kind of few family friends that would put in buy a pair, set of tyres, or buy me a pair of race boots or something like that, which was always so helpful. And then you move up into cars and everything's a lot more expensive. And I'm lucky enough that my granddad funds a lot of my racing, but it's kind of getting to the point now where it's getting a bit tight. Like he's just retired, and I can't keep asking him to pay for my racing for the rest of my life. So with sponsorship, I write my own proposal. I create my own packages and quotes, some of which I've got up on the the platform. And I also make my own email PDF sort of thing, and I send it over to companies. I think I'll just type in something like haulage companies near me and email every single one of those websites that come up. And it is a lot of emailing and hearing nothing back, or people being like, oh yeah, I'll forward this on to the accounts team or the marketing team, and you just don't hear anything back. Which is understandable. Businesses, you never know what financial situation they're in, and they might not have the money to sponsor someone. But I've been quite lucky in that this year I've partnered with cross-country carriers, which have been a huge help, and they paid for my fuel expenses at Silverstone, which was absolutely amazing, and they've been brilliant. Very the communication is great, which is something you need from a sponsor, because you can put all of this effort in and create packages and stuff, and if you don't get that communication back from them, you can't kind of build a relationship. So what I like to do is once I've secured a sponsor, I keep them updated, I invite them to the race weekend, and I provide a race report afterwards. I think you don't have to be an absolute motorsport nerd to want to sponsor a car. It's fun for everyone. I think a lot of people are like, oh well, especially the lower championships, they're like, oh, you need to find someone that just loves motorsport. But I think motorsport's for everyone, and anyone, whether you're interested in motorsport or not, it's always nice to bring people down, and then kind of you can introduce them to motorsport and show them why you love it, and then hopefully they find that love as well, which is always a perk, I suppose.
So from your perspective, what do you think are some of the benefits for a brand supporting someone like yourself?
Exposure is a big thing. I personally, I'm very on it with my social media stuff. I create my own content, I create my own graphics, manage my own social media, and that is something that's so big now. Social media is huge, and it can be used as a tool. You harness that power of social media right, you can reach the audience of hundreds of thousands of people, as well as that you get exposure through the live streams. Most of my races are streamed on YouTube, and you put that logo on that car and they're like, oh, that was on that bright chrome pink car. I'll have a look at that company. My car is one of the brightest ones on the grid, and it gets noticed a lot. And with my car, we wheel it out of the awning so that people can come and have a look at it at the race weekends, and loads of people, they just want to come and have pictures with it. And then all those people that are taking pictures with your logo on my bonnet, that's all exposure. It's all about getting the brand out there, and I do a lot of thanking sponsors and stuff like that within interviews or posts, and just constantly pushing their brand, and then also kind of linking networking with other brands. So say cross country carriers, haulage company, they haul pallets and stuff, and then if say one of my I don't know, friends or a different company are like, oh, we need a haulage company, I'll be like, well, here you go, here's their number, and it kind of just grows. It's all about marketing and growing exposure and getting brands out there, really.
Talking of the car and the colour that it's got, obviously, like you mentioned, it sticks out. Is it a strategic choice to have that colour, or is it just, yeah, let's go for it?
Well, when we first got the Fiesta, Dad was like, we need something that stands out. And I knew I wanted a pink car. I've had a pink Crush helmet since I can remember in British Champs when I was karting. And he was like, what if we did chrome pink? And I was like, well, that could look cool. And Dad then started sending me chrome pink cars, and he was like, this would look really cool on a Fiesta. And I remember when we first got it done, and everyone hated it. They were like, oh my God, what is that? Because it didn't have any of my sponsors on it or anything. It just looked like a bazzed up Fiesta that you'd see on the road. And then it got a few battle scars and it started to look like a race car. But it is strategic in a way that it stands out. And that's kind of part of my now brand. In our first year, the wrap is quite expensive on it. So when I'd have a few coming togethers and dinks, and Dad's like, oh, we've got to rewrap that panel, and oh, it's this much, and everyone was like, oh, just get it painted and get it sparkly pink or something. And we were like, no, because now I'm known for having the chrome pink car, So if we wanted to move into a different championship or race something else, I've got to have a chrome pink car because that's just part of my brand now.
So we've spoken a little bit about your sponsorship journey. And part of that, you've also joined the platform Sponsor Driven, which is what this podcast is all about. What made you decide to sign up in the first place, and how do you see it fitting into your overall motorsport journey?
I just saw the platform as it makes sponsorship easier. Like before Sponsor Driven, before the platform was launched, I was just constantly sending out emails and it was a bit aimless. Like everyone does the same. This is me, this is what I've done, and this is my car, and sponsor me. But it's easy. It's a kind of like you can see the breakdown. You can create packages. It makes purchasing packages easy instead of like, I suppose, like invoicing them and like, or if a sponsor comes, like you get a sponsor and they're kind of like, oh, I don't like how much money am I actually going to give you? Like what can I do? And it makes sponsorship less limited in a way. Like they can then select a package, select a number, or they can create their own value that they want to spend on sponsorship. It just makes it so much easier instead of like I create my packages myself and then I put them on Sponsor Driven, and it just makes it easier for people to see and anyone can access it. So like fans or if a family member wants to put in a bit of money, they can add a bit of money or they can subscribe. I think I've got a couple of people that subscribe £5 a month, which is amazing. Like it all adds up and it just makes sponsorship accessible, not just for big companies and people like that, but it allows the fans to almost give back. Like there's probably so many people out there, like drivers, that can't afford to race, and fans would probably happily give them a couple £100 or a few pounds just to be a part of that journey. So it just makes it more accessible to everyone, really.
And how have you found the experience of using the platform so far in terms of people supporting you?
I think it's brilliant. I've had a couple friends support me, and then I've got someone that follows my racing quite closely over in America, and he's always kind of wanted to send money, but it's kind of quite hard. And then the platform came about, and I think he's one of the first people to put in a few £100 in there, and it works. Like it just makes sponsorship a bit more attractive. I think lots of companies see like, oh, you're asking for sponsorship, you just want money. Like, whereas you create a package and it's like, well, you can get this out of it. You can come do this and for this amount. And it kind of makes sponsorship a bit more transparent. I think a lot of people like, I need this much money. And it's like, okay, but what am I going to get out of this much money? And it just makes it more accessible and more, transparent for people that want to get into sponsorship.
So your experience on Sponsor Driven so far has been quite positive. Would you recommend it to other drivers as part of their strategy?
Yeah, definitely. So I do some work with a few drivers. I kind of like specialise in social media stuff, like creating graphics. I've just recently set up my own kind of like social media management little business that I'm trying to start up. And I always, when people are like, oh, can you create me a sponsorship package? I'm like, well, there's this whole platform where we can create you packages and then I can post them on there. And it just makes it so much easier instead of just emailing people aimlessly. Like you can send them your Sponsor Driven, your page, and then they can see it there for themselves. So I definitely do recommend it to anyone that's looking, which is probably everyone in motorsport is looking for sponsorship. So I'd recommend it to everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I guess the hardest part of racing is, of course, the funding aspect. So motorsport is famously very expensive. Can you give us an idea as to what it costs to run a season in the Fiesta ST Championship and how you go about managing those costs?
So I was actually speaking to my dad about this morning. We do about £3,000 a weekend with the Fiestas. So that's including you get 2 new sets of slicks per weekend. That's fuel, consumables. So we go through quite a lot of brake pads, oil and stuff like that. And I think we worked it out to be about £21,000 for a season. And that's just it spending on the car. And that's with owning the car yourself. So
Nice.
I own my car. I think that's about 20-25 to purchase it. But there are a lot of teams where you could do an arrive and drive arrangement, so to make it a bit cheaper. But then that does also then mean like you'll probably have to have a mechanic with you, and that costs money, and have the car transported and kept and stuff like that. So I'm quite lucky that my dad and granddad, both mechanics, so they do a lot of maintenance on the car, and my granddad is now my number one mechanic for the weekends. It used to be dad, but now it's granddad. But it's not just the spending on the car, it's also the loss of earnings. Like my dad and granddad probably have to have a Thursday and a Friday off, and then the fuel for our vehicles to get there, and food, hotels. So I think we worked it out, ballpark figure, about 45-50 grand for a season, with all of the extra outgoings, or like what you're not earning. So it is a lot of money. Whereas like people are like, oh, but it's only 20 grand to go race for the year. But it's like, yeah, to spend on the car. But actually when you look at it and you're traveling 4 hours to a circuit, that's a lot of fuel and like hotels. I stay in a motorhome, so like food in the motorhome and stuff like that. It does all add up, and motorsport is a ridiculously expensive sport. But that's why we race Fiestas, because Fiestas is quite cost effective. Like it is, for what it is, a one make championship on slicks, and we go to all sorts of circuits, and we get live stream coverage. It's a pretty good price for what you get.
And in terms of the sponsorship that you've got, just percentage wise, like how much does that cover, and how much are you having to put in yourself?
Majority of my racing is funded by ourselves. So I do some sponsorship work with VBox, and they gifted me one of the new HD boxes. So I get exposure through that. And then my new sponsors, it's quite small, like 20%, 10% of what what the full cost is. So it's a drop in the ocean, but to build a partnership, that you don't know where that could go. Like I work really hard to network and build connections, and then hopefully help them build connections as well in the motorsport world. Like motorsport is huge for a business. Like jumping into that or dipping your toe into that world can bring so much business, because people from all sorts of walks of life watch motorsport, compete. So you never know who's gonna then see your company, your logo, and someone might go, oh, Morgan's sponsored by this person, they do this, I'll get in contact with them, or something like that. It's very like up in the air, wishy-washy, but it's kind of a risky kind of want to take for your business, so that you can then potentially make these connections and stuff.
So we've spoken a lot about racing, but what I'd love to know is what you're like outside of motorsport. So we talked about you being a student at university. You're a young person living life outside the circuit. What do you enjoy doing away from the track?
I love like the gym and fitness and sport. That's something that I've always been interested in since I was young. So part of that being me doing my sport and exercise science degree, that consumed my life for like the past 3 years, and I enjoyed every second of it. I loved learning. Like I do love like learning new things, and recently I've kind of taken up the whole graphic design, social media, sort of content creation type thing for myself and my own personal brand, but also then putting that in and helping others. Like I do the social media for the team. I do it for a couple drivers that race JCW minis on the touring car package. Recently started doing it for one of my teammates. Like, I just love to kind of learn new things and build new skills. So that's kind of like what I'm doing now. I like to always be like doing something, going from doing 3 years at university, constantly learning, revising, always doing something, to finishing and kind of being like, what do I do now? I kind of like to keep myself busy in that sort of respect, but I also love fitness and the gym. Like, I'll go to the gym like every day and create my own fitness plans. And like, if any of my friends are like, "Oh, can you create me one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll coach you. It's fine. Like, I'll do that. I love it. I just really love everything fitness and social media. That's everything that kind of like consumes my life outside of motorsport. And even then, it's kind of involved in motorsport anyway. So everything is just racing, really."
Well, I'll bear that in mind if I decide to ever go to the gym. You mentioned about your sport and exercise science degree. Was that a strategic choice relevant to your racing, or was it just something that you wanted to do because of your love of the gym?
I think it was definitely something that I wanted to do anyway. Like, aside from racing, it got to the point where like COVID happened. I went to sixth form, and it was kind of like, you need a backup plan if this racing thing doesn't work out. So I decided to go to university and do sport and exercise science, mainly for the love of it. I just loved PE at school, loved like human biology. Like, I just found it so interesting. And then I was like, got to that age, like 18, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what job I want. Like, I just want to be a race car driver. So I decided to go to university, kind of put my life on pause for a bit and just still consume my like self in education. And I just absolutely loved it. But then it kind of did turn a bit strategic, because then you started learning about like the human physiology, nutrition and stuff. And then I started implementing that back into my own personal practices as a racing driver.
I was going to say, was there anything that you've kind of taken away from that degree that you've applied to motorsport?
Yeah, definitely. So I will always remember this lecture. We did it on milk as a hydrator, and milk is so much better than water in hydrating you. And I did a C1 endurance race, and it was really hot, and I did an hour stint, never done any endurance racing before. Like, I'd only ever really been in the car for like half an hour max, and then got chucked into this 1 hour race, and I was like, I can't do this on water. I need something else. So I just drank chocolate milk before I went out, and chocolate milk works. It's such a good hydrator. And people, whenever like I'll go for a run and then I'll run to the shop and buy a carton of chocolate milk, and everyone's like, "Why have you done that? You've just undone all your hard work." And I'm like, "No, you're not listening. It hydrates you. It's just, chocolate milk is the best hydrator ever." And that's what I took from my degree. Pretty much.
I mean, I would definitely say that like milk and especially heat don't particularly mix very well.
No.
So it's interesting to hear that, actually. Yeah. Going back to your hobbies then, do you have any hobbies that kind of let you switch off from motorsport? Is that something that you actually want to switch off from?
I say I do like a lot of walking. Like, I live in the countryside, so I kind of try and soak that up as much as possible, and that really that relaxes me. But other than that, motorsport is just absolutely everything to me, and I wouldn't change it for the world. But after you've had a bad race weekend, sometimes it is nice to just do something else. Like, I've just recently purchased a road bike, so I just go and cycle around the village. I do like 3 laps of the village, and that normally does the trick to switch off, to be fair. But yeah, just keep myself physically active, and that's kind of how I switch off, really.
So motorsport, definitely the career path that you're wanting to go down. looking ahead, what exactly is your dream in motorsport? What does that look like for you?
So the dream is definitely to go out onto the world stage or go out into Europe and race GT or do some form of endurance racing. That's where I want to be. I want to live that life where it's like, oh, we're going to go test at Spa. We've booked your flight. You're flying out. It's tomorrow or something like that. That's what I want from my life. But that is so hard to, like, I want to picture that and I want to believe that that is where my life is going to go. But it is really tricky, especially when you don't have the financial backing. So currently I'm keeping my goals a little bit smaller, looking at the like more nearer future. So I would really love to go into JCW Minis and get on the Toka package, because then you get that TV exposure, which is more attractive to sponsors. And then hopefully we'll get then more sponsors to then progress through that. And I'd love to do British touring cars and be on that sort of scene. Like, I just love tin top stuff and I want to race tin tops forever. That's what I want to do.
And if money was no issue, what is the one series that you wish you could do?
Probably, I don't really know. Because I would say F1, but I just think F1 can get a bit boring sometimes.
It's everybody's go-to answer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is always F1. Probably...
What car would you enjoy most, do you think?
Definitely the Lamborghinis look quite cool to race out in Europe. Like, definitely some sort of supercar, sports car thing. Probably a Lamborghini in the GT, doing some GT racing, I think. Probably that, yeah.
Have you driven a Lamborghini?
No, never. But they just look so cool. I think they look really cool. Imagine a chrome pink Lamborghini. That would be pretty cool.
That would look pretty cool. You already touched upon your immediate plans for next season. Are you going to remain in the Fiesta ST, or do you think you'll progress into something else?
I would like to progress into something else. Whether that is possible is another thing. We were kind of skeptical about racing this year because we didn't know if we'd have the funding. Like, I've already had to miss a round. I missed Anglesey, which wasn't great, but I had a bit of a turbulent start to the season, so I was never really in the championship fight, unfortunately. I would love to progress into JCW Minis. That is what I want to do, but it is quite a big financial jump. Yeah. It is a lot more money to race on the Toka package. And even if you're doing it at the budgeted end, it's still a lot of money to race those. So whether that is going into maybe the Coopers, because they're still on the Toka package, get a few guest rounds, you get on the TV, get that exposure. But if not, I would like to stay in the Fiestas and try and have a crack at the championship. Like, I've been racing it for so long now, like, I should be up there. So fingers crossed. If I would like to be in that pro championship battle for next year, but we'll see. Like, it's a long winter. I've started putting packages together already to try and price up to race a JCW Mini.
Okay.
But we'll see. It's always a bit up in the air over the winter. It's normally I get to the beginning of the season and I still don't know what I'm racing. Like, Dad will just be like, right, you booked in for this. And I'm like, oh, I'll just turn up and race, pretty much.
So your dad has been quite a big influence then in terms of your racing. How much of a role model is he? And is your mother just as supportive?
Yeah, so my parents are both really supportive of my racing. They love it. They just love going out and racing. And my dad has had a huge influence, like, on my whole career. Like, he's the one that wanted me to get into motorsport. He's the one that bought the quad bike, bought the motorbike, bought the karts. Like, he's the one that just wanted this for me. And then my granddad as well, he's a huge support. funds a lot of my racing, but he's my mechanic. So if the car gets a bit banged up, he's the first one underneath the car trying to get it fixed, to get it out. Like, there's none of this, oh, it's too broken, we'll go home. It's always all hands on deck, try get the car fixed and ready to go back out. My mum, she's still really supportive. She used to come more to my karting races than my car races, but cars, you're away from home for normally like 3.5 days, and she can't get the time off work to come and watch, but she'll always be watching live timing while she's doing the shopping, or got the live stream on the TV. But yeah, my family are a huge support, and they support me in everything that I do. Like, when I try and get sponsorship, now that I'm older and I can find sponsors myself, it's kind of like, when I got my most recent sponsor, I just kind of like walked into the living room. I was like, oh, Dad, I've got a sponsor for next round. And he's like, oh, nice. Like, well done. Like, brilliant. So yeah, they are still a massive part of my racing, but I'm taking a bit more of a bigger role now that I'm a bit older, that I can start doing that. But yeah.
And speaking of obviously your parents' support and supporting you from a very young age, do you think it was because they wanted to break the stereotype of obviously there being a very male-dominated sport? And do you think they've been pushing you harder as a result?
I think I was one of those kids growing up that had loads of hobbies. Like, I swam, I ran, I did gymnastics. Like, I was always doing something, and karting was the one that stuck. That's something that me and my dad would go and do on the weekends, kind of like a bonding thing, which I think a lot of motorsport starts out as. And like, my parents would never push me to do something that I didn't want to do. Like, if I didn't want to race, they'd be like, yeah, fine, just say and we'll stop. But that never happened. And then it got to a point where it was kind of like, oh, you're getting faster now. Like, we can actually do something with this. This could be a career potentially. And then the pressure did kind of start piling on, but I think that piled on more from myself than it did from anyone else. Like, I knew I could do it type thing. Like, I was never a very confident person growing up. I was always quite shy. And like, I'd always have to rely on external sources of people being like, no, you can do that. You are good enough to do that. You deserve to be here, and you are fast. Like, I always relied on that external validation, which always came from my parents, which was, I was pretty lucky. Like, I'd have a bad race weekend and Dad would be like, just take it on the chin, mate. We'll go out again next weekend and we'll be quicker. So yeah, no, they're very supportive. Yeah.
Good. Excellent. I guess finally, like, what advice would you give to other young drivers, especially female drivers, that dream of racing?
I'd say just do it. Just find your local kart circuit or track or something, and either go and book on for like a test day or something, like your local team sport or your local go-kart circuit, and dip your toe in the water. Like, I can guarantee you'll never look back, because I never did. Like, you'll get hooked and you'll get the bug. Or just go to your local circuit. There are like so many MSV circuits and other circuits around the country that will have regular race weekends on. Even just getting into the paddock and just watching it and feeling that buzz. Like, motorsport, unfortunately, isn't the most accessible sport. It's not like football. You can't just go take a ball down to the park and kick about. Like, it's harder, but it's not impossible. You can do it, and I'd just say, just try and do it. Bite the bullet. Say, if you're younger, save up all your birthday money and go karting or something. Like, but it's so worth it. Like, it's brilliant. I just think everyone should love motorsport. I just love it. I'm so passionate about it.
Fantastic. Well, Morgan, thank you ever so much for being with us on the Sponsor Driven podcast. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for being so open about your journey. From starting in karts to winning a Fiesta ST 240 title in your rookie season, moving up to pro class, and of course balancing racing with your university life, your story shows passion, resilience, and ambition. To our listeners, you can follow Morgan's journey on Sponsor Driven, and support her career directly. And if you're a competitor yourself, we'd love to feature you on the podcast too. So sign up at sponsordriven.com and you could be our next guest. You can find the Sponsor Driven podcast on all major platforms, including YouTube. So don't forget to look out for that when the episodes come out. And thanks for tuning in to the Sponsor Driven podcast. Until then, stay driven.